It's How I Make Money with Andy Beadle. All right, everybody, and we are back. This is the How I Make Money podcast. I'm Andy Beadle. Our guest this week is John Vuong with Local SEO Search.ca up in Toronto, Canada. Wonderful to have you on. We have been just crushing it with our international guests lately. So although the business community in the Canada, the United States are so intertwined that I don't really even think of it as being, different countries, but obviously it certainly is. So we're delighted to have John on, and he will be our first SEO expert on the show. For those listening who are not deep in the internet space, SEO is search engine optimization, and that goes along with paid ads to help people grow business. So we may, in addition to getting to talk to John about how he grew his business and what he does, get some tips on SEO. You never know. But hey, thanks for coming on the show. We're so excited to have you here. And for those who are just listening and not able to see, you've got to go check out the video version of this on YouTube, because John is currently rocking the best behind the desk bookshelf set I have seen ever. I love your book collection there, my friend. It's really great.
Well, thanks a lot. It's, a couple years in the making, but I
Right.
do enjoy reading, and I try to absorb like 1 to 2 books a week. So
Wow, that's I remember doing that when I was in middle school. I could read 2 books a week because I had all this time. I would love to be able to keep doing that. And gosh, before we kind of go down the path of talking to you about your business, let's back up and talk about that. I know a lot of folks who swear by the idea of consuming information, valuable stuff from a business or personal standpoint at that rate. How do you have a life and get through 2 books a week? What are you doing to make that happen?
yeah, in the morning. So it's all about habits, right? And I have a
Right.
young son,
Okay.
and therefore I try to wake up before him and take in the 1 hour or an hour and a half to actually read.
Right.
So it's been a godsend of just changing my daily habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mental clarity, eating healthier, way more energy. You get so much more accomplished before everyone else wakes up.
Right.
So it's my time. I can easily meditate. I can exercise. I can do whatever I want. But because here in Canada, we're kind of in lockdown still,
Mm-hmm.
so we can't go to the gym. We can't go out. Sometimes it gets really cold out here still. So it depends on
Right.
where you're living in the parts of the world. But yeah, like for us, it's more about like just this is where we live. This is the situation we have in front of us, and you make the most of it.
I think that the lockdown, my wife and I were talking the other day. We live in Virginia, and obviously there's just been this weird mishmash of stuff in the States that nobody can understand or make any sense of. But we were talking, I think we had our lockdown start just about a year ago last week. And we were talking about how when it started, she's a financial professional, financial advisor. So she's always home late, right? Because her clients, she meets with them after their work, or business owners. She meets with a lot of business owners. And, for the first maybe month of lockdown, it was kind of a party because she was home and we spent all this time together and it was great. And then it drew on and drew on. And to come back to that, but those habits are so important, especially when life kind of throws you these curveballs. If you don't have that structure, it's easy to just kind of let things, I think, go, and you lose sight of a lot of your goals and the things that kind of help you sharpen the knife or the saw or whatever you want to put it, Stephen Covey. And you lose ground on things like keeping up on reading, keeping up with fitness and all of that. So amazing and impressive that you were able to kind of keep all that up in lockdown up there in Toronto.
Yeah, it's just changing the
Right.
way you live, right? Understanding perspective. This is what we have been dealt with. You either, you know, cry and sulk and go into this spiral of like depression, or you look at the positives around it, right? Like that
Right.
means you can spend more time eating at home, healthier foods, cooking, if
Right.
that's one of your passions, right? Like enjoy different local outings and campgrounds and parks, right?
Oh yeah.
Nature,
Yeah.
because I'm not allowed to fly. I can't travel like when I used to be able to like fly to different parts of the world. But now
Right.
it's more like now these are at your disposal. Go out there and seek it out, right? Find
Yeah.
what you can do. Like I love barbecuing, so I'm spending way more time just enjoying that aspect. Although a lot of
Right.
people can't come over anymore, it's more about
Right.
it's. So I spend a lot of time at the parks so that my son could play there with his friends. So I'm getting to know more of the community and their parents, right? Where I used to never be able to even have time to uh, learn from others, right? So
Right.
it's more about just enjoying what you have in front of you and not worry too much, right? Like
Hmm.
life is a long journey. And
Right.
if you're in it for 80, 100 years, I mean, this is 1 year. And I
Right.
get it. It's very hard for a lot of people. But if you take it, embrace it, and get the most of it, always try to grow and not look back. Like as a business owner, you have to be decisive. You have to
Right.
always move, right? And try different things. So it's the same thing with your life. You just have to figure it out. What's important? How do you embrace what is dealt to you and have
Hmm.
fun along the way?
Yeah, 100%. And I agree. And we've talked to a lot of people about their businesses through the past year, and I'm sure that we'll get to that. But before we do, explain to people a little bit about your business, who you serve, and kind of the shape of what you do, and how it all kind of works for you.
Definitely. So I started this agency 8 years ago, back in 2013, called Local SEO Search. And it's funny because I, I'm not tech savvy. I'm not the type that would stay behind a computer and just learn code and understand how Google works and all this
Right.
stuff.
Right.
The reason that I started this company was 10 years prior. I've been having a sales career. Like I was in sales, advertising
Right.
sales in particular.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I dabbled into online affiliates to learn about small, medium-sized businesses to large Fortune 500 companies. To then I worked at Yellow Pages for 5 years. And at that stage, and I really got to really understand what value small, medium-sized businesses really had for the communities, right?
Right.
And cities that was they were serving. So that really attracted me to what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Really, like there was a need in the marketplace where people were transitioning. They were moving away from traditional print directories to
Hmm.
now user behavior was shifting to now Google.
Right.
And I knew, at Yellow Pages, people are just frustrated, not getting good return. They were spending more than
Right.
ever. And
Right.
the customer base was moving. Like they were declining, not renewing, and frustrated. So speaking to them, I was frontline in sales, and they just told me like I needed someone they can trust to help me do get in front of more customers in front of
Right.
Google Digital, right? So that's why I set myself up to kind of figure out, right? So I knew there was a need in the marketplace. I wanted to be the trusted source to really help these small business owners, medium-sized business owners, become more visible online, and that's what I did. So 8 years ago, that was the start of it all. I'm still loving what I'm doing. It's a lot easier now because I kind of know what
Right.
I'm doing now. First couple of years was a battle
Oh,
because
sure. Yeah.
running a business, not knowing how to do it properly, setting up a team, setting up system processes, and everything else. And then now I have a good rhythm and things are in place. So I'm very fortunate that with this pandemic, a lot of the business owners that we do serve,
Right.
yes, they were impacted, but we are felt to be one of more of a necessity to them
Mm-hmm.
because it is very important to have a digital presence in today's day and age.
Right. Well, and I think, looking back for everybody listening to this who is under the age of 30, the Yellow Pages was a giant book full of phone numbers, alphabetically and then by category. Amazing. And I look back on that and think, wow, the need remains the same, right? I need to be in front of my customers when they're looking for me. So we used to have these big books by our phone, and you looked for a plumber or you looked for an electrician or a restaurant or what have you, and have these Yellow Pages ads. And and I love, because I think that's the core of entrepreneurship. You are deep in a market, you're dealing with these people who have this need, the landscape changes, and this idea of this big book full of numbers, full of dead trees, never really meets that need anymore. But that doesn't change what you do. You're still meeting the need. You're just doing it in a different way. I think that's a brilliant way to look at entering a marketplace for anybody, right?
Yeah, and I guess I was fortunate to have a skill of sales as well. Early
Right.
stages, a lot of business owners don't have that sales,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, skill set and
Right.
background, so they're not confident in what they're pitching or
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
I was, pitching it, but I had no idea how to deliver. That was
Right.
my big problem, right? So I had to figure that out. So,
Right. Right.
spending 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week for the first couple of years, like
Right.
just absorbing content, making a lot of mistakes, learning, going to all these conferences, reading blogs,
Mm-hmm.
watching videos, listening. Like there's so much education in a new
Right.
space that you're not comfortable in because you've never really learned it from foundation of school and then courses
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of battles, I would say, a lot of growing pains. But over the last couple of years, I'm much more confident today. I feel that I'm much more knowledgeable and informative for all
Mm-hmm.
my uh, clients, and we can do really good work for those professionals, right? Like
Right.
that need a trusted advisor that want to have a digital presence, especially to position themselves as thought
Right.
leaders
Yeah.
in their industry.
And you really can come at so this is my fourth business. I've been in the advertising and marketing space since 1997, and interestingly, my first business agency started as a side hustle because I had taught myself HTML. And people needed websites all of a sudden, oh man, I'm here. So here we go. And I think there really are two ways to start and grow a viable, healthy small business. And one is to say, I have a skill and I want to monetize that skill. And then I go out in the marketplace and figure out where to apply that skill. And I think the other is exactly what you did, where you say, I have a keen insight into a problem that people need a solution for, and I will adapt to the marketplace to continue to provide these people that solution, right? And I think those two approaches are both, very viable, because early on, like you said, here I am, a code guy. I'm not a sales guy. I don't really know how to talk to, so I had to learn that the hard way. And on the other hand, you're good at uncovering needs, uncovering how do I solve, what are the pain points? What are the things that are crucial to your business? I'll backfill what we need to do, but I'm going to understand you better. So I think for people listening, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm a expert woodworker, so I'm going to go make thread boxes or whatever you make when you're an expert woodworker, right? And so I think that's just a brilliant way to tackle it. And frankly, pretty courageous, man. I mean, props to you to say, hey, I see a need, man. I'm going to go figure out how to meet it, and build the plane while I fly it, right?
Yeah, so it's definitely not for everyone. I think
Right.
it's timing more than anything in terms of the whole lifespan of your life, right? In your career,
Mm-hmm.
you probably build up a good skill set. You are comfortable with a good salary or commission or whatever it is in your
Right.
profession. And now you feel you're very confident you can get another job very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was at that company for 5 years. I was earning decent money, and it was more like, okay, these are the next steps. I can
Right.
either find another company, work at Google, for instance, or work at
Right.
one of the major players, or try something. So it all depends on what your base looks like, your foundation. So I was very happy to have been married, and my wife fully supported me to take on this adventure, right? So
Right.
I didn't have that overlying burden of having children, huge mortgage, all that stuff.
Right.
You need to really focus, right? Like you need to have strong desires, goals, and passion and whatnot, but you also have to really put in all the time and effort to do it properly well the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just felt like I was in a good state at that time. Yes, it was challenging.
Right.
Yes, it's
Sure.
not for
Yeah.
everyone. So is sales. Sales is very stressful,
Right.
very
I
challenging.
was going to say, weren't you in sales? What do you mean challenging? Challenge sales is hard. That's hard work, man.
Especially when it's 100% commission
Right.
and you have no skill set at the beginning and you're phoning hundreds of people a day, getting rejected daily. Like
Right.
you have to have a thick skin and you have to learn and act quickly on your feet, right? Like learning all these skill sets, what was able to allow me to position myself as someone that kind of knew how to position myself,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
into the marketplace.
Well, so what's a typical engagement with a client look like for you? And I guess, and if you don't mind, talk a little bit about that and talk about the team that you work with to deliver stuff for clients, because I think it's really interesting to hear how people interact, with the markets that they serve.
Yeah. So for what we offer, we're a full service SEO agency,
Okay.
and what that means is, search engine optimization is helping your website. If you own a business, you probably have an asset, which is your website, and you want to have yourself appear higher up on the search results page when people are seeking out your product or service, as opposed to your branded name. Because
Right.
if people know you, that's like the white pages of the yellow pages. They're looking for your name. But most people don't know who you are. And you're trying to attract those customers that are not, a referral, right? Or word
Right.
of mouth.
Right.
They're more new to the city, just interested in your product and service, and they don't know who to go to. So you want to at least have an option to win them over. So that's more the yellow pages of the directory, as well as Google search.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason I actually got into Google is because it was so similar to Yellow Pages, right? Like it
That's funny.
basically, yeah, Google took over Yellow Pages. It
Right.
took over
Right.
the entire business.
Yep.
So it was an easier transition for me. Um, and then understanding like how Google works, it's more like they're to be on the first page organically means you're not paying to be
Right.
in front of people, and people, users, me, you, other people in the world, they understand the difference between a paid ad and a
Right.
natural organic ad, which
Right.
is, you feel Google's done their best job vetting and distinguishing which websites fit your user query of the keyword.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you trust Google and you want to then position your website to be more visible for as many of the keywords that you want to be known as and for in your product and service realm in your marketplace. So, what we've done is built a team to help position business owners' websites to slowly increase their ranking, which means building authority, becoming more of a trusted expert in the eyes of the customers, ultimately, which is users, but also Google, because
Right.
Google is the platform that allows you to serve up your website, and the users are the ones that are actively seeking out your product and service. So you need to be good at understanding the users and
Mm-hmm.
Google and playing by
Yeah.
everyone's rules, which
Right.
is everything very similar to running a real business. Like you need to know how to run a business to take care of your customers, to be profitable, to
Mm-hmm.
then serve your community. Everything is very, it makes sense, but it's hard to actually implement and take action and fulfill.
Right.
So
Well,
building
and
a team out of it. Yeah.
I was going to say, and how do you, if a business comes to you, um, and I don't know what would be typical in Toronto. We live in a sort of suburban / rural area, so I was like, oh, if you have a roofing business, but I don't know, But if I mean, I assume you get people who are restaurants, or they're a florist, or they're a business that serves other accountants, or what have you. If somebody comes to you and they say, gee, I need to, I want to capture some more of this organic traffic. How do you go about addressing that need and helping them move forward? What does that kind of look like for you guys?
Yeah, so typical engagement are the yellow page type of clients,
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, the roofers, the florists, plumbers, dentists, lawyers.
Right.
They're all professionals, right? And they've been in business. They've probably been in training to become a business owner for the last 20 years, from school,
Right.
apprentice, to then working under an owner for many years, putting in the hours, time, then to learn how to run a business. So at this stage, they're probably in their 40s, maybe
Hmm.
30s and 40s, and maybe even 50s, right? And they understand what it takes and means to run a business. So they want to
Right.
look for someone that actually, or an agency or freelancer contractor that has some gain, experience, right? Reputation, someone that knows what they're doing with social proof, etc. Um, so when they reach out or whatnot, they basically, we need to find out how legitimate their business is. So we do a lot of like checking to ensure that they're credible. They
Hmm.
say what they do. They've been around for a while and they actually have real customers. So we typically don't work with people that are early stage
Right.
idea
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, but more people that have some experience, has revenue, has been in it for a while, 5 years or so,
Hmm.
and they understand how to run a business, because that's the biggest thing about this whole world, right? Like there's
Right.
a lot of people that are not cut out for business ownership, and I'm not the one that should be teaching them how to run a business. I'm the
Right.
one that can amplify their message
Right.
from being a good business owner to becoming a great visible business owner in Google, right?
Hmm.
So I want to help them position and become more visible on search. So when they reach out, it's all the fact finding of, yes, I can check out your website. I want to take a look at your competitors. I want to know what's going on in the
Hmm.
state of where you are, benchmark it against all your major competitors that you want to be known as and compete with. Then put together strategy and ideas, framework to figure out like how and what needs to be done to get closer to them so that you're in the
Hmm.
same playing field. And this is what I mean. Like doing this for hundreds of these clients in the last 8 years, I've built a lot of SOPs,
Right.
standard operating procedures, understanding what works and what doesn't, having a good track record. So I have now a full on team in house that delivers on this, from the front end account managers to sales reps to then the back end, the fulfillment of strategy, SEO strategy, the content team, the development team, the graphics team, the social media marketing team, reputation marketing, link building team. And
Right.
it takes a whole village to make it work properly, because
Sure.
these are skill sets that you cannot cross breed. Like an
Right.
SEO person is not great at
Right.
developing a
Right.
website. Like a coder is not great at like talking to a customer, right? Like that's a different language set altogether and skill set.
I don't know
So
what you're talking about. What do you
you know,
mean coders aren't good talking to customers? That doesn't make any sense. No, I hear you.
but it took me a while to harvest all this, right? Like
Right.
learn, build a team, get
Hmm.
everyone to collaborate, and then it's more, I'm still learning, I'm still making mistakes, but we're getting better and better, and we're getting way better results for clients. We're over delivering everything. It's just, it takes time to put this together, and
Hmm.
therefore it's still a challenge, but I still have a lot of fun trying to figure things out, because every client is different and they're unique in their own world, and I have a challenge to really help them. And ultimately, we try to help people that are very good fits with our values.
Sure.
And that's one thing I feel we've been working on the last 8 years, and more so in the last couple of years. We don't take everyone on. We say no to a lot of people because they're
Hmm.
not good fits.
Right.
And it's better to say no and they respect you more,
Hmm.
um, than to take on everyone.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think it's hard. It's hard to quote turn down that business, because you're early stage and you're like, hey man, I need clients. I need to make some revenue. I got to make payroll. But I think you pointed out, the only thing worse than no work is bad work. And when you have a client that it's not a fit, it's just a death march all the way through. Nobody's happy, and I think that's a really smart way to go about kind of bringing people in who you can knock it out of the park for.
And it's also the vetting process, right? So
Hmm.
we took a lot of time at the beginning to make sure that they have the same kind of mindset and they
Hmm.
know expectations, what they're going to get. And we should be the experts, not them, right? There's a lot of people that want to dictate everything that you do and how things operate. And you know It took us
Mm-hmm.
8 years to get to this point to build something. If they want to do it themselves, will do it themselves, right? Like this is the way we do it. If you want to work with us, um, but there's a mindset in terms of some of these um, professionals. They've always been in control, so they are very hesitant to give up control. So you need to understand, the difference, and where you're at in your business will dictate that.
Well, you said something earlier that I wanted to come back to, and again, we do kind of occasionally on these episodes get a little bit into the weeds, and just because everybody who has a business, and I really don't care what the business is today, to at least think about what it means to appear in search results is vital. I don't think you can successfully grow without at least having that in your head. But you mentioned a lot of things. I think a lot of people go, "Oh, I'm going to be on the first page or second page." But you talked about having reputation management. You had social media people in house, content development, graphic development. Talk a little bit about these different disciplines that all go into that search ranking, because I think a lot of people just believe you hire somebody and they flip a magic switch and things happen, right? Which is, nothing could be further from the truth. But those subdisciplines I think are super interesting and something that's very much worth hearing about.
Yeah, so understanding what it takes to rank on a on Google in particular,
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand Google has over 200 signals to determine which websites rank higher than others, right?
Right.
And to understand what ultimately they're after is they want to help websites appear higher up that are earned, right? The ones
Right.
that deserve to be higher up. And what do you want to do in position yourself as a business owner? You want to be obviously on that first page. But if
Right.
you're brand new to business and there's 10 other dentists or plumbers that have been doing SEO or been working on their website for many, many years, is it realistic? Like
Right.
you have to understand perspective where you sit versus some of your major competitors. And that's why we have this framework that we put together over the many, many years to really help guide people through the ever-changing landscape of Google, but also understanding like your main website is the biggest asset piece for your business. Everything else like supplements it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of, yes, you have a YouTube channel, you have a Facebook page, Instagram, you have Twitter feeds, you have content on all these other sites, you have directories, you have graphic design on, Pinterest or Instagram, like all these things. It's all branding, right? It's
Right.
all
Right.
about being there. If people, may search and seek out that product or service, or they like that image or call to action phrase or whatever it may be, but it
Right.
all should go link back to your website. And the more you get from your website, that will actually give you more of a bump up in the
Mm-hmm.
search.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's engagement, it's shares, it's likes, it's reviews. There's all these signals that Google doesn't tell you any of this, right? It's
Right.
all a
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
trial and error.
Right.
And it's more about like understanding what it takes in the landscape of Google and understanding the behaviors of customers as well, like
Mm-hmm.
your users. Why would they pay for a roofing job if they don't know anything about you, your
Right.
business, who's done work with you, what's your system and process? Give me some before after pictures. Tell us your
Mm-hmm.
story. All these things matter in the eyes of someone that's brand new looking to pay $5,000, $10,000 on a brand new
Right.
roof.
Yep. Interesting. Well, I think too, and this is important to note, when those of us in the business who do either paid ads or we're doing the review stuff, or you're doing the that very kind of intensive search engine optimization SEO work, these signals and the guidelines. I mean, Google has published guidelines for people in terms of, hey, here's what we consider to be the kind of basics of good citizenship on the web. But these signals, the 200 signals you're talking about, those are not anything that Google is public about. And it's important that they're not public about it, because I remember back in the dark early days of the internet, and people would kind of figure out how to game a search term, and you're searching for, dog toys for chihuahuas, and you read an article on a page that mentions that phrase 400 times, right? It's not natural. And I think Google has to keep these things out of the public eye so that we earn, like you say, you earn the traffic, you earn the trust of searchers and consumers. And that's hugely important to understand. It's not about tricking anybody. It's about telling your story and telling it in a way that's plausible, right? I mean, just like dating somebody, right? You want to meet their friends, you want to have your friends check them out, make sure they're not an axe murderer, or if they are, at least they're really an interesting axe murderer or whatever, something like that. So
Yeah, exactly. Because everything you do should be user intent focused.
mhm,
Like I started this business because I was asking my real customers where the gap is and what they
right.
wanted out of people. It's trust. It's the relationship piece. It's someone that actually will deliver on their promise, right? Be
Yep.
authentic and transparent. All these things are very, very important in terms of the foundation of running a business. And if you take that on to now digital, yes, there's going to be a lot of people,
Right.
business owners that are going to go for the fast wins. They want guarantees. They want high deliverables. They
Mhm.
want metrics and guarantees and all this stuff. But in business and advertising, I've learned over the many many years that there's no guarantee in
Right.
advertising, and we're gonna try our best. I
Right.
mean, we have a good track record, we have a good team, and we focus on helping. And these are little things that you learn over many many years of failure and successes, and you just try to improve the process and just learn, right? Like from
Right.
all the little mistakes and people and nuances and Google and what people are saying and all these marketing funnels, like they work for your business or not. You gotta try it. Just
Right.
don't be sold. Give it a shot, right?
Yep.
Like these are things you have to learn as a business owner. You have to make decisions every day, and you got to
Yep.
figure out what's best for your purpose at this stage of your business
And I
cycle.
think you've got to accept that certain amount of uncertainty, if you will, right? There's always that uncertainty that goes in when we enter a new market with a client and we're doing, billboards and TV and online ads and newspaper, and they'll say, "All right, well, when can we start expecting results, and what will the results be?" My answer is, well, if we're really lucky, in about 30 days, we will know which half of our advertising spend is being wasted. Right. So that at least we'll know that. Right. And I think the idea that you've got to continuously iterate is something that's important for any business, especially when you're out trying to get new customers and new clients through search engine work or advertising. It's not an exact science, and the marketplace changes on you all the time. So I think that's huge. How do you guys get new business and clients?
99% inbound,
Okay.
which means people are seeking out different services, right?
Right.
And for us, it's SEO. So a lot of people are looking for SEO providers or helping them in terms of marketing, digital marketing. And
Right.
we just offer one thing, right? We do
Right.
build websites, but we only offer this one thing, SEO full service. And it's already very difficult and challenging. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we spread it to all digital products like email funnels, social media, and paid
Right.
ads, digital marketing, retargeting. There's too much in it.
Yeah.
So I just want to really be known as that boutique agency that really
Mm-hmm.
helps business owners that need it, right?
Right. Well, and again, too, that's the nice thing about Google and this game of raising your rankings in the search engines is, you all are in Toronto, but everything that is true about Google is just as true as Toronto as it is down in Naples, Florida. So you're really able to serve a global marketplace, right? I mean,
That's correct.
yeah, and I would imagine, yeah. So how far flung is your client base? Are most of your clients local to Toronto, or are they sort of
North
all over? Or?
America and Europe,
Okay,
right?
North America and Europe. That's exciting. Well, not that all of your clients aren't interesting and amazing, but what is one of the most interesting projects businesses that you've ever worked with and tried to position? I'm very curious to hear that.
Uh, I see them. I see them all, right?
Right. Sure.
From all the yellow pages type clients, as well as B2B providers. But I don't know. because I've worked with thousands of business owners over the
Right.
course of many years, and for me, every client is a challenge. So I love the pest guys, I love the tree guys because they're very down to earth,
Right.
good humans, right? But
Yeah.
then I also love some of the family-run B2B companies or factories, but they
Right.
built it, and I'm able to help them even sell their business after a couple years because
Mm-hmm.
now they have a digital asset of their website being positioned as a thought leader. So
Right.
I just love helping good business owners help them become more visible online, right?
Right.
So success wise, it's just helping good people, like good
Sure.
business owners that kind of understand how to run a business, but they're frustrated with this digital space, right? So there's
Right.
that gap. And it's a different skill set. Not everyone enjoys being on social or doing email marketing and anything to do tweaking on the website. So
Right.
it's uncovering what your skills are, your expertise, and focus on that. And there's other people that enjoy this stuff that can help you grow your business.
Yeah, and it is true. I think you're so right. People who well, I don't know how to put this as delicately as I can. People who actually do stuff like take down trees or, the pest control, or they're in manufacturing, they are a lot of fun to work with for exactly the reason that you've said, because, they have a business that's very skill intensive and requires a lot of attention to process and the management of that process. And when you come to them and you say, here's our process, and it's also skill intensive, well, now you guys have this common ground to talk about. And I think it's a lot easier in a lot of ways to work with people in that kind of situation than sometimes, in situations where maybe you're talking to the marketing manager of a bank. We have banking clients. I love our banking clients, but right. So things are a little divorced from what's actually happening. I think that's super interesting. Let's talk about Europe for a minute. The marketplace there, we do a lot of paid advertising. Do you run into any differences in your approach in European clients versus North American from a regulatory standpoint, or any things you got to
Not
do differently there?
necessarily,
Okay.
because for us, we have a framework, right? And
Right.
we're testing and we're monitoring, we're auditing all the time to see what works
Mm-hmm.
and what doesn't. It's not like one size fit all for every client,
Right.
right? We have a
Right.
lot of software and we have a lot of people that's always changing, tweaking, testing all the time. And whatever works for one client, one industry, and one market will not work for another in the same
So true.
industry
Right.
in a different market. So this space that we're in, it's not for everyone.
Right.
And I totally agree. Even digital marketers stay away from SEO because there's no predictable result.
Right.
It's like paid ads, right? You know, impressions can
Right.
deliver X amount of clicks potentially that can deliver, if you put the UTM code tracking of
Mm-hmm.
telephone and leads, how many calls or, actual contracts you're going to get. The challenge with SEO is positioning yourself as a thought leader will bring in tons of organic traffic that
Mm-hmm.
will typically reside in your most loyal, highest paying, ideal type clients who are seeking out your product and service. So they're further down that buying cycle. They are highest in ticket value, which is lifetime value of a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And they are your best tribe because if you do it properly, your website should speak only to the 10 best clients that you have.
Oh, I
And if
like
you
that. That's
write it
great.
for that purpose and you start creating questions and content, blogs, understanding what the problems and pain points those 10 best clients are, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to start getting inbound leads of your 10 best profile type clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really powerful to think about it that way, because a lot of people, I think, say to themselves, "Oh, I'm going to rank high, and then I'm just going to get all this traffic, et cetera, et cetera." It's like, well, no, you want to. I mean, you want to rank well, obviously, but you want to speak to the people who are going to be the best relationships you can cultivate, and really thinking about how to serve those people's needs, I think, is just a huge step forward, other than just saying, "Oh, I want to be at the top for this term, that term, or whatever." I mean, I used to do an example years ago, back when people would get on airplanes. I don't know if you remember this, and go speak to other people in large rooms. I can't, but I used to do a lot of speaking, and I would say, hey, ranking for a term, even a relatively high traffic term, is not very hard, but ranking for a term that produces traffic from people who are potential clients, that's where the real hard work comes in. And I think that's a difficult distinction, I think, for some people to understand, and that you really are writing for those top 10. I see you've got a Dan Sullivan book behind you, The Who Not How. So I'm a strategic coach guy, and at the Chicago group, and he does have a great thing where you talk about the Farm Club and the top 20, where you identify those best clients and you orient all of your outreach to people who look just like them, right?
Creating that avatar
Mm-hmm.
and answering every single pain point problem,
Yep.
put that FAQ together in blogs. And like you mentioned, that conversion rate optimization, that
Mm-hmm.
conversion rate call, and understanding that it's not search volume that you're after. You're after the low hanging fruit that
Right.
people are ready to buy. So I would rather go after people who search 10, maybe 10 times a month,
Right.
potential prospects, but you're easily able to rank and they're converting at 100% or 80% versus
Mm-hmm.
someone that a broad term that you get tons of traffic, like thousands of traffic, but none
Right.
of them are actually ready. They're maybe early stages, right? And
Yep.
yes, you need a lot of content for different stages of the funnel, but understanding that you want to position yourself so that you get a high click-through rate that converts to your ideal type of client.
Right.
That's what we do for our agency. So we've gotten better and we still improve with the entire process, onboarding, systems, collaboration with our team to always learn more from the client. Because the more we get from them, extract it because
Right.
it's everything's in their head, business owners, right? So you have to pull things away from them with a lot of questioning to really uncover what they want in their KPIs and goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're able to start delivering on that, then they're going to be sticky clients and they're kind of lifetime clients of yours.
Yeah. Well, and we do this 6-day challenge thing for people who are taking maybe a side hustle and going to make it a viable business or starting something up. And we do exactly what you've said, but from the start, where we say, hey, what you need is to look at your product and service space, and you need to take your product or service and create the minimum viable product, right? The most stripped down basic version that meets the need, and then test that out in the marketplace. And again, that is all about exactly what you've said. What are the KPIs, the key performance indicators? What are the results that you need in order to grow and be successful? And in order to do that, you've got to be able to tell that story, provide the information, address objections up front, all of that stuff. And it is interesting to me. There's kind of a weird flexion point where I think you're right about that first 5 years is a great period to look after that, people who've made it that long. But something sets in around 10 to 12 years
Yeah.
where people have been where suddenly people think they know everything, and when you ask them basic questions about their business, they seem kind of flustered, and you're just trying to help them tell a story, right? I have a friend named Gary Nealon who an internet friend, not anybody that we've spent a lot of time together, but he and I think his family owned a cabinet shop up in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania.
So he told that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you know him. But his content, I mean, think about it. Like, these guys became these dominant players in, I don't even know what space you'd call that, the indoor cabinet space, because Gary just answered every possible question you could have about cabinets and built this brilliant, sticky resource for people who then said, well, gee, I'm going to go call this guy about cabinets. Brilliant. And I am sure, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I am absolutely sure, given the business that we're in, that it cost him a lot less in the long run than it would have been to generate that traffic through paid ads.
Yeah. So again, this is the whole point about
Right.
SEO, right? Inbound traffic to answer a problem that people may have,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just looking for a solution, right?
Right.
They're either wanting to do it themselves, or you guide them to the best resource, or you can satisfy their need by
Yep.
offering that product and service yourself. So the more you understand inbound versus outbound sales, um, And this is where paid advertising is more about being there at that specific time for that moment where someone may be wanting their product and service, right? You have to
Right.
capture that audience or potential prospect at that given time and moment.
Right. Yep.
Um, as opposed to earned media, which is organic in nature and it's more inbound. And again, yellow pages.
Right.
I refer at yellow pages. You can pay to be on the spine, the back cover, and that's creative. You can put flyers in there, right?
Right.
Or you can go into yellow pages directly into categories, and people who are ready to buy, looking for that restaurant or plumber or roofer, they're picking that up, and they're gonna
Right.
call 3 people. And I know there's another term, directive versus creative ads. I love the term renting space versus owning space
Oh, I
because
like that.
I
Yeah.
feel SEO is owning. And if you're a real estate investor, you own a property, you know the difference between renting, you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly paying someone to rent the space versus owning it, where you're gonna get cash flow potentially, you're gonna get
Right.
appreciation, you're gonna get the upside of it all, right? And you have ownership. So there's a lot of terminology I use because over the last couple of years, just been in it for so many
I
years.
love
Now
that.
I
I
just
have never heard that distinction, and that is brilliant. I love that. I'd use it, but we run a lot of paid ads, so I'm going to have to use it at parties where we're not using it in front of clients. But I think that's an absolutely fantastic way to look at it. And like you've said, those paid ads are not an asset to your business, but that owned website, that web presence, really is an asset. Um, you know,
exactly. You're gonna constantly have to pay no matter what. But when you own
right?
that asset, you might not even have to pay SEO anymore. You don't even have to
Hmm.
pay for ads. And when you sell it, it becomes a huge asset piece
Yep.
on the books, right? It's like, look, I'm creating so much inbound organic traffic that convert to leads, that convert to real revenue and sales and profit.
Hmm.
That's a huge distinction versus I'm paying $10,000 in paid ad every month. And if I
Right.
stop, there's no lead flow.
Yep.
There's no potential prospects that's going to generate additional revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now that we're kind of maybe sort of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with COVID, and it's not an oncoming train, what are you excited about in your business and what you guys are doing here for the coming year?
Yeah. So for me, I'm spending more time. So I've been really focused in Canada for the
Okay.
last 7, 8 years. But during this
Right.
pandemic, I've been really focused on trying to expand into the US and Europe. So I'm just dabbling into those markets
Sure.
and started picking up some clients there. So for me, that's my focus to expand, do more. And this is the challenge. Business owners don't have time, they
Hmm.
don't read blogs.
Right.
They want, like, the challenge is get in front of them and as a trusted advisor, someone that they can really, want to do business with. So
Sure.
you need to do the speaking. You need to be in front of them. It's not
Right.
the paid ads. It's not the, advertising in brochures, magazines, and flyers to really bombard them, telemarketing. It's
Right.
about they are a part of an association. If you're leveraged in that association, you're speaking on behalf as the expert to help them grow. That's one of my focuses to really expand that route to do more speaking. I'm working on a book. I'm working on a community, and
Nice.
it's fun, right? Like these are challenges, but they're more 5-year kind of targets
Hmm.
and things that resonate with me. Like my purpose and goal is really to help these small business owners to compete with the large box stores, right?
Right.
And it's a challenge for a lot of business owners because during this pandemic, there's a lot of lockdowns.
Yeah.
They were hit the hardest.
Right.
And how do I help the most vulnerable people out there, business owners
Right.
that want to support community and family? Like
Yeah.
they're like me. That's what resonates with me more, right? Like I want to
Right.
help the little guys because I'm one
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Well, and I think the pandemic really put in sharp relief just how easy it is to become dependent on these large retail systems, really like Amazon's a system. And not to speak ill of Amazon, but they've got great customer service, they've got great rock solid delivery, they've got a huge product space, but there are a lot of issues in that product space too with, quality and sellers, who are bad actors and all of that. Whereas your local business, that money all comes back into your community. Your hiring people who are local to your community, right? I mean, everything about local business, I think, is, there's really no downsides at all. And more to the point, local businesses are accountable to each other, right? You can't, I mean, I would imagine even in Toronto, our market isn't that large, but you even take a market like Toronto, and there are the pockets in there where, as a local business, you're accountable to your customers in a way, because you see them at the grocery store and your kids play, soccer together or go to ballet together or whatever. So I think that's a hugely important focus, and something that definitely the local businesses need a leg up, for sure.
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what you nailed it. I
Yeah.
I see all these neighbors. I see
Hmm.
these sport parents and you know leaders in religious realms. And
Right.
they're good humans. They're people that you can resonate with. They have
Right.
children. They have families. They are trying to get through this all like everyone else is, but they've been impacted, and there's nothing they could have done to prevent it. The
Right.
government
Right.
has restricted them to do what they should be doing, right? Opening it
Right.
up to serve the community. But
Right.
they're allowing big groups like Amazon, big lobbying
Yeah.
organizations like Walmart to stay open, Costco.
Right.
Like,
Right.
who's really benefiting from that? Is
Oh,
it consumer?
yeah.
Or is yeah, you may save a
Right.
couple dollars on big bulk items or, all the items are from China anyways.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you're not really helping neighbors, the people that really need it.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah. 100%. I agree with you. Well, I tell you, I do want to respect your time, and really, as I say to everyone, this is all just an elaborate buildup to the two most important questions you can ask any entrepreneur. So no pressure, but a lot rides on what you're about to say. So there we
Yeah.
go. So if you could give a new business owner one piece of advice, regardless of what they were going into, right? I know that, in my experience, entrepreneurs and business owners are some of the most generous people with their time and their advice. And that advice is hard won. I mean, if you can stay in business for a year, you're in rare air. If you can stay in business for 5 years, you're in very rare air, right? That is not a lot of businesses. So if you could give a new business owner one piece of advice, what would it be?
My advice would be keep doing and staying positive, because there's a
Hmm.
lot of growing pains. So taking
Right.
action and
Yep.
being proactive and growing, right? Like mistakes happen.
Hmm.
You're gonna fail many, many times. You're gonna be challenged. There's gonna be indecisiveness happening. You gotta really move on with mistakes and successes and keep plugging away, because without that, I don't think any business would still be around after 1 year, or 3 years, or 5 years, right? You got
Right.
to be an action taker.
Yeah. Well, and I think again, that was something, again, mentioning Dan Sullivan when I started in his program, talking about protecting your confidence, and I think that's so true. And it's something maybe a lot of people don't hear, in that, they're starting a business, they're all excited, and they're just rah rah, we're going to take over the market, we're going to build the better mousetrap. Everybody's, it's amazing. I don't even need to advertise. And I think to say to them, hey, I love that enthusiasm. Do everything you can to protect that, because you got some hard days ahead. You know, you're going to discover things about your business you had no idea, or you might kind of find, we work in a lot of highly regulated industries. You might find there are regulations that are going to prevent you from engaging in the business model you'd want. You have to work around that, and protecting that confidence and protecting that spirit and enthusiasm and positive attitude, I think, is so important, especially in the early years, right?
Sure.
Absolutely. So you've been in this 8 years, you've been a sales guy, you've dealt with a lot of mindset protection over the years. What do you do to kind of keep your head in the game and kind of keep your attitude in the right place?
Um, for me, it's more about growth
Hmm.
and curiosity. Um, so growing up with not much, like immigrant family,
Right.
growing up in whatever situation it was,
Sure.
people
Yeah.
grow up, perspective is
Right.
everything. So
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
I I feel like my goals were changing as I evolved and grown every year.
Hmm.
So thing was I wanted a car when I was young, right? Then I wanted to travel. I wanted to then eventually buy a home. I wanted to get married, have kids, like all these life
Right.
stages happen.
Yeah.
So in terms of now business growth, it's like I wanted to form a team. I want to travel with the team. I want to build a community. I want to write a book. I want to again, I'm not at a state of selling my business, but
Right.
maybe one day in 5, 10, 20 years, sure. But right now, I'm still enjoying the process. I'm having fun. And every stage, I still enjoy because there's
Right.
challenges along the way from being a better leader, being a
Hmm.
better, employee, doing what I'm doing now. Like I'm meeting so many interesting people during podcasts and speaking
Hmm.
conferences, just enjoying the presence and being present, right? Like just showing up all the time
Right. Right.
and having fun.
I hear you. No, and I think that's important. I think keeping things fun. We had a guest on a few weeks ago, and she was talking about that. Uh, kind of listening to yourself. And hey, I mean, if you're not at least, I mean, work is not always fun. I think we all know that. And sometimes you just got to do it. It's just like going to the gym. You got to keep doing it. But if you're not having any fun and you don't find any fun in it, then don't own a business anymore, man, because it's just not worth it. Absolutely not worth it.
And then also like I'm ultra grateful for the opportunity to be living in a Western society.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because
Yep.
I was very fortunate to travel in third world countries to, first world and just different parts of the world to see how
Right.
people are living, let alone running a business, let alone surviving. So
Mm-hmm.
having food, shelter, choice, access,
Yeah.
information, knowledge, insight, like access to books. I mean, that's a huge thing. So just understanding perspective, where you sit is maybe 5% of the world would
Right.
95% of the world don't even have food and shelter on a
Right.
regular basis. So, understanding what privilege we have to make larger impact,
Yeah.
helping people that you can, right? Doing things that can, filter on to your employees or staff or community mentor, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding what you have is so important.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's one of those interesting situations where, everybody's background is different and we were talking earlier, I grew up in Hawaii and I was real fortunate because in the 70s and very early 80s when I was still there, it was a very different place there. It had not become the commercial kind of hub that it had, and we had a big influx of money and business from the Japanese market, I think right around the time I left. So real estate got very expensive as people were moving in. But I knew a lot of families who were immigrants, and then went to college in Minnesota. That surprisingly, the area where I went had a really large Vietnamese immigrant population and a large Jamaican immigrant population, and being able to interact with people who see your culture, if you will, who see all of these things you have from these eyes that say, hey, I traveled, I risked a lot to be here. This is amazing. I think having that mindset, and like you say, it really comes down to gratitude and realizing the gifts we've been given, especially in Western culture, to have these choices and to have these availability, and even the access to capital to start a business, is something that people don't think twice. The average American has $9,000 in credit card debt. You go to somebody in heck, Burma or Mongolia and tell them the average debt. I mean, that's like saying I just came here from the moon, right? I mean, to be able to do that. So that's a really important point. That to keep your mindset right, a lot of that involves gratitude for what you have, and to take advantage of those opportunities that you've been given, because not everybody gets them.
Yeah, like resources, access,
Yep.
information, like takes, maybe one generation to
Right.
learn how things operate,
Yep.
right? In the
Yep.
society that you're living in or community. So
Right.
for you to now live in a culture like here in Canada, US, or
Right.
anywhere in Europe, you're in the Western top 2% of the world wealth,
Oh
economy,
yeah.
everything growth,
Right.
right? So you have the ability to do a lot of things that people in Burma would only dream of to be able to go on one vacation in their
Right.
lifetime.
Yeah.
to have the ability to fly and go on a boat. Like no one would even dream to do that, right?
Right.
So for us, we have the luxury to do that once a year, once every couple months, if you're very fortunate, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
there's things that you have to be understanding of circumstances and don't compare to others. I know a lot of people are always, living like the Jones, comparing to
Right.
neighbors
Right. Right.
and
Right.
all
Yeah.
that. I'm not that type. Like I know where I come from. My mom sacrificed everything. My parents sacrificed everything to lead the Vietnam War, to come
Right.
here to
Yep.
Canada. Didn't know the language, no support, no money, government housing. We just didn't have much, right? And
Yeah.
for me, it was like I was fortunate to have food and shelter, let alone
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that people had, like nice
Right.
clothes, nice cars, all this stuff. I would only have dreamt to have that, right? So
Yep.
now it's more full circle of seeing, well, now I have a little bit more access to this, and now I want to help those people that need it who are living here, right? Or in different parts of the world. So
Yeah.
hopefully you have that gratitude in you to pay back, pay it forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? Help
Mm-hmm.
others.
Yeah. 100%. Great answer. All right. And now here we are. This is it. The big question, the one we've all been waiting for. If you could have a meal, share a meal with any living public figure, who would it be and what would the meal be?
One living public figure.
Yep.
Who and what would the meal be? Hmm. So I do enjoy this SEO space, but I've already met quite a lot of the public figures there.
Right.
Um, like me, humans are humans, right? Like I do respect Bill Gates. I do
Right. Sure.
respect Warren Buffett for what they've done, you know, Elon Musk and all of them. But just humans. I don't know. Like for me, I respect my mom. I want to spend more time with her than ever. And that,
What then? Where would you take your mom for dinner?
so I've
I
gone
love
to
it.
Vietnam. Went back to Vietnam with her.
Oh
And
wow,
she took me to where she lived. This was 2 years ago, and this was I brought my team. I brought her. It
man.
was like a trip that I always wanted to do with her. Right, like whatever she wants, I take her to now. Right, like she
Right.
sacrificed everything for me. So I'm like, this is what we do. The small things. I don't know. My mom just loves to be around with me and my son and my wife, right? So we just do things.
I
So
love
as
it.
much as everyone thinks that they want to go with these big global conglomerate, big stars, superstars, I'm just a humble guy, man. I'm just a normal person that just wants to live with some access. I don't need a ton
Right.
to be happy. Just understand like life is short. Do it
Right.
with people that you want to be with.
Yep.
Spend time with good people, have great experiences, and enjoy it. Be happy.
Well, I think after we are done today, you're going to have to call your mom up and let her know she has now unlocked the achievement of becoming a living public figure. So you heard it here first, everybody. John Vuong's mom is now a public figure. She is available to be named in later podcasts as the living public figure you'd like to have dinner with in Vietnam. So there we go. I love it. I love it. That's a it's so true. You know, my parents live in town here. They're in their 80s. You know, they both grew up under very different circumstances, and I think one of the things that the pandemic showed me and showed a lot of people was how easily all this stuff we take for granted can be taken away. And can just vanish like that. And in our case, you know, my parents came down here from where they had retired. My children have all moved back to town, despite swearing they never would. And then my grandson is born. So we used to have dinner together every Sunday. And we haven't been able to do, and that was, you know, to have the privilege to have dinner with my parents every Sunday and to have the family over, you know, sounds like such a common, ordinary thing, but was anything but for us. And again, to have that taken away, you're exactly right. It's like, you know, I don't need access to famous people. I need to be with the people I love because and when I can't be with them anymore, I'm really going to miss that opportunity, for whatever reason. So I think that's an absolutely brilliant answer. And I'm really grateful just to hear. I mean, that trip sounds amazing. Your team, they must have spent however long just, oh my gosh, right, to kind of experience that culture so differently.
And my mom, public figure, she actually was front page newspaper one of those years, like maybe at 10 years ago, but
Oh,
she
really?
volunteers a lot. So I'm
Right.
like, I respect her for everything she's done to raise, good children and
Right.
understand the values and what's important in life, right? And it's time. So
Yeah.
I call my mom every day with my son, right? It's like this is what she looks forward to every single day. We
Right.
got to make sure that we do it because that's what she wants us to do. Like,
That's
but
fantastic.
understand like what's important.
Yep. Yep. That's amazing. I cannot think of anything better than to end this episode on that note. That's incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest again today has been John Vuong. He is the leader, founder, president, and head dude at Local SEO Search.ca. And if I remember correctly, John, you guys offer a free website audit to people who are looking to kind of improve their position. I think that is it's so well worth the time and the effort to do that. So if you're listening and you've got a business, go check it out, Local SEO Search.ca. The button is at the top of the page to the right. It says free website audit, and get John's team to take a look, because you always learn something interesting having those done. And I think, I think that's a great idea. And you were talking about starting a community. Is any of that up and running yet, or?
It's 3 months in the works. Creating a lot of content, understanding how to build a community is challenging, but it's a fun process. So this is more for the early stage businesses from
Okay.
a startup until like 3 to 5 years, because there's a lot of information that you need from
Yeah.
operations, HR, team build, accounting, bookkeeping, sales, marketing. All these things are challenging for a lot of business owners. So
Right.
just helping them, assisting them would be a great tool or resource kit to help people that are struggling and need support, right? And that's
Yeah.
one thing about community build.
I love it. Well, when that's up and running, we'll have to have you back to talk about it. I'd
Sounds
love it.
great. Thanks a lot,
All
Andy.
right. Everybody, thank you once again, John. Great to have you. This is How I Make Money. I'm your host, Andy Beadle, and we will see you again next week. Thanks for joining us. You can find contact information about our guest in the show notes for this episode. This has been the How I Make Money podcast by Brand Distillers. To learn more, visit branddistillers.com.